Okay, well, hello everyone. It's Stories Live time. So it is 7 p.m. on Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. And so we are doing the things. So tonight's readers include Tom Broderick, aka Thomas Kitschy, Roberta Crownover, Jeff Wood, SETH, and Steve Anderson. And I just ate a huge sub sandwich, so I'm probably going to be kind of having the after effects of that here. But let's see. So I know that we have a slight adjustment to the lineup here. So I am just going to go ahead and pull up my document, assuming I can do it. All right. So just bear with me for a second. Whoops, that's not it. I did just turn 41 this year. So, there is probably the whole, oldness and technology thing going on. All right. So what I am going to read tonight is actually from my personal essay that I'm working on right now, which is called Two Brunches from Hell. And the first part of this, which is the part I will be reading, is called The Wrangler. And for those of you who don't know, actually, yes, the Wrangler is a real place, or at least it was a real place pre-pandemic. For reasons that will soon be obvious, I haven't been there for quite a while. So, the Wrangler. Shortly after I moved to Denver, I recognized that I had entered a period of my life that included a lot of questionable decisions. One particularly alarming trend was making a particular poor decision repeatedly, having brunch at the Goods on Colfax. For the uninitiated, the Goods is the restaurant attached to the Tattered Cover. Going there for brunch often seemed like a good idea. As an aspiring author, I could browse literary magazines, see what the staff recommended, check out the bestsellers, take books by authors I hated and reshelve them in the erotica section. And after all that productive stuff, enjoy a mimosa and some eggs. Wholesome, right? I should have known these brunches weren't a good idea the time I started at the Goods and ended at the Wrangler, a grungy gay bar downtown. I love gay bars in Denver. I don't recommend eating snacks at any of them, at least not Daddy's. The salsa there is the worst, but the people watching is amazing. Also, it's one situation where I can be surrounded by men and alcohol, and I don't have to worry about someone creeping on me. It turns out that adventures like that can go wrong in other ways. I was at the bar eating my brunch and talking to the bartender when two women came in and sat next to me. They introduced themselves as a mother-daughter pair enjoying a weekend in Denver. Mom was visiting from Phoenix and her daughter was visiting from DC. The daughter, Macy, said that she had two goals that day: to see the Tattered Cover and the Goods and to have a sugar steak at the place down the street. Even though I'd just eaten, I thought a sugar steak sounded pretty good, and I told her I would probably be down with joining her for that. As we went through introductions and talked about Phoenix and DC, the unlimited Bloody Marys and mimosas flowed freely. The bartender eventually had to switch from the classic orange juice and Prosecco combo to throwing pineapple juice in there. Macy declared that while the orange juice and Prosecco seemed heavenly, the pineapple juice was impossible to stop drinking. She was clearly a woman speaking her truth. About 5 mimosas in, 2 men came in and sat down next to Macy's mom. They had to be about her daughter's age. But Macy's mom shouted into my ear that her husband was a piece of shit and she came to Denver to have a little fun. I looked over at the two men and took in their well coordinated outfits and high end shoes. Something told me she would need to look elsewhere for fun. But I've misjudged situations like this before, so I shrugged and decided to watch things unfold. I didn't hear exactly what one of them told Macy's mom, but I saw her sloppily lean against the counter and she blared, "What do you mean you don't sleep with women?" The goods got so quiet, I could hear neon signs buzzing from blocks away. I leaned toward Macy's mom and I said, "You can't really talk that way around here. It isn't nice." "What do you mean? This is not natural." I can't believe what I'm hearing. What is with people now? She swayed slightly, then announced that she was going to walk back to their Airbnb. Macy watched her stagger out. Is she okay to get back there on her own? Probably. I'll text her later. Macy turned from me and went back to talking to one of the men with nice shoes. The other man tapped me on the shoulder and asked, "Are you with her?" Oh, no. No, I was just sitting here having my brunch and they showed up. I pointed to my empty plate as if it were evidence. Oh, good. That was messy. I nodded. The ex and I are going to this fundraiser at the Wrangler in a little bit here. Do you want to come with us? It's unlimited beer for $10. Here's a dangerous assumption about beer in Colorado. With all the craft breweries and being the home of the Great American Beer Festival, beer typically means good beer, but not always. Unlimited fundraiser beer is not good beer. I didn't know that yet, though, so I said yes. It's not like I had plans. Next thing I knew, I was in a lift with these two guys and a very buzzed Macy. "I feel like we were meant to rescue you," one guy said. The other one exchanged phone numbers with Macy, and they proceeded to text between the front and back seat. When we arrived at the Wrangler, it became obvious from the everything about the situation that Macy and I were the token heterosexual women and that we were in for slim pickings on the beer front. Coors, Bud Light, and occasionally a Fat Tire. On the bright side, it was served by a shirtless guy in booty shorts. I tried to keep an eye on Macy, which wasn't too difficult since I just had to look for someone who didn't have broad shoulders. About an hour in, though, she seemed quite attached to this guy, Ted. Ted tolerated Macy climbing all over him and sitting on his lap, but his affections were at their limit. Macy also took a call from her husband while in Ted's lap. Of course, I didn't know what their understanding is or was in their relationship, and we were outside of the DC zip code. Maybe it doesn't count. Macy announced she was going to take a pee break. Once she was out of sight, Ted came up to me and said, "Is your friend okay? I think she's confused." I've only known her for a few hours. "Oh, wow," he said. "Yeah, I know." When Macy staggered back in, I waved her aside and said, "If we want to get sugar steaks, we probably should head over there soon. They close in an hour." Okay. Let me just say bye to my friends." She stumbled toward Ted and continued giggling and made no sign of going anywhere. I spent the next hour weaving between couples and groups on the dance floor and consoling one gentleman who'd had his affections thwarted. I later saw him making out with someone outside the men's room, so at least I know that had a happy ending. I just try not to picture it too much. The beer special ended, and with the sugar steak place closed, I decided I was done with Colfax for the night. I opted to call my most recent Tinder squeeze to demand that he pick me up and found out that I could have a hangover while drunk. I also found out we did not have sexual chemistry. I probably should have stayed at the Wrangler. All right, so that is my thing. Let's see. So Steve Anderson says, done with Colfax, best to never start with Colfax. So true. Okay, so Tom, are you ready to go?
As ready as I'm going to be.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Amy. This story, I had to chop out parts of it, but I had to make it so that it will have a common through line. So, and per the theme, it's called I Know What You're Thinking. Outside the windowless van, oh, hold on. Outside the windowless van, the sun was setting. The inside was moist with sweat and boredom. In the back, two men in suits sat on swivel chairs in front of a floor-to-ceiling console made up of screens, knobs, dials, and flashing LED lights. Holding their headphones to their ears, they stared at the motionless, empty middle-class rooms displayed in the CCTV feeds. The younger of the two men, sporting a crew cut and bright eyes, shed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves past his elbows. Christ, is it always this hot in here? You get used to it, the older man replied. A small red light in the center of the display illuminated. Both men righted to attention, pressing buttons, typing on keyboards in the console, flipping pages in their notebooks. Recording engaged, whispered one into his headset. Time, 19 hours, 32 minutes, area code Chesterfield. They sat motionless, listening to the sounds meant to reproduce a phone's ringing. Hello? Hi there, may I please speak to John Devine? You've got him. Hi, John, this is Gabriel McCovey. There was a pause. Okay. We were classmates in high school for 3 years. I sat behind you in AP History as a junior. Gabe McCovey. I went by G. Ring any bells? I think so. Well, in any case, I'm calling to let you know that after all these years, I'm not a success. I didn't become anything great. I didn't even become anything mediocre or notable. Really, I'm nothing. I'm a nobody. John Devine was silent. I know what you're thinking. The town was expecting big things from me, but in the end, I failed and I'm going to give up now. So no need to worry about it. I hope you can accept this as a formal apology. I'm sorry. I don't think I quite understand. That's all right. I simply wanted to tell you how it turned out. I'm not looking for any statement or declaration from you. Okay. Hesitance stained John Devine's voice like cranberry juice under fingernails. All right, I've got more of these calls to make, so I won't take up any more of your time. Have a nice day. You too. As the phone call ended, the older man in the van hit a button on the console, producing the synthetic sound of tapes changing in their headphones. They fervently copied various readings, timestamps, and statuses from the console into their notebooks. The young man's leg bounced as he hummed the tune of Gilbert Sullivan's Major General's song. It took all of 30 seconds before the older man slapped his pen to his page. Lee, he said. The leg stopped. Sorry, Chief. Traffic noise from outside swelled into dull roars that died away intermittently. Hey, Chief, the young man said. Just how many of these weird calls are we going to listen to before we do something? All of them. Doing something's not our job. I know, Lee said, absently spinning in his chair. Just seems like nothing tangible is happening. No forward progress is being made. Not everything's tangible, the older man replied. What? I said not everything's tangible. You think this is some kind of code. Lee, the chief said with flinty verve, leave the pondering to the guys who get paid for it. Lee frowned, chewing his lip. His skin felt slick like an amphibian's, and he could taste saltiness in the sweat on his lips. Instead of saying anything more, he procured a bottle of water from the mini fridge behind the driver's seat and downed it in one fell swoop. His cell phone hummed against his leg like a cicada. He slipped the phone from his pocket into his hand, registered the caller's name, sighed, and shoved it back in. Spam? The chief asked. No, unknown number. The older man yawned. You know, Lee said after a minute, I kind of like pondering, actually. It's better than just watching. Shh, I think another call's coming through. They hunched over in their chairs and pressed their earphones tight to their skulls. Lee recited the info flooding across his screen into his microphone this time. Hour 19 minutes 36. Area code is Chesterfield again. Recording engaged. Hello. Hi, is Mr. Delgado there? The Mr. Delgado who used to teach at North High School? One moment, the voice said. After a few seconds, a gruffer voice came over the receiver like it was being played from a VHS tape in someone's memories. This is Donald Delgado. Hi, Mr. Delgado. This is Gabriel McCovey. Gabriel McCovey? The same Gabriel McCovey I coached in basketball? And baseball, yes, sir. Good Lord, he exclaimed. What a blast from the past. Indeed, said Gabe. I'm 31 years old now. Can you believe it? It's hard to believe. I remember when you were knee-high playing t-ball with Jerry and Raul. Yes, I remember those times too. Related to that, I'm actually calling to let you know that I didn't become who I set out to be back then. The rhythm of the conversation collapsed into ungainly stillness. Could you repeat that? I know what you're thinking. I showed a lot of promise. I was a good student, a good athlete. I was supposed to be the one from my generation who left Chesterfield and made something of himself. I remember you saying something like that to me once. Did I? I'm calling to apologize, Mr. Delgado. It turns out I couldn't do it. Even though I had all the advantages, I couldn't really decide on what I should focus on. I got lost somewhere in college and romance. I thought I was trying all this time, but really, it was half-hearted. I'm going to stop trying at all now. It's for my health. Stop trying. I'm not following. I can't be someone special, so I'm going to stop trying. I'm going to accept that I'm someone ordinary. I want to set the record straight with everyone from my past who had certain expectations of me. I fell short, and I'd appreciate it if you'd update any illusions or musings you had or might have that I would go on to do great things, because I won't. Gabe, I'm not sure what to say in response to this. What's wrong? Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Is this a rehab thing? Are you in AA? No, I'm not part of any organization. I'm not a recovering addict or anything. I just got to the end of my rope and I couldn't take one more step forward. Think of it as collapsing in the middle of the desert. I'm defeated, so I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm notifying everyone of the result. Well, I have to say it's regrettable to hear you speak like this, considering I used to look after you on the field and the court and the classroom. I hope the best for all of my kids from over the years. I suppose I appreciate you calling, and I do remember you had talent, but honestly, only vaguely. How old did you say you were? 31? You have a lot of life ahead of you. You still might do some good things. No, Gabe said suddenly, his voice icy. I won't. That won't be me. That'll be somebody else. I'll just keep being a footnote. I can't prevent what I was, but I can try to set the record straight going forward. You really think the whole world's watching you like that? You understand that's ridiculous, right? I understand it, but I still have a lot of other people to call, Mr. Delgado. I can't take the chance that they all feel the way you do. Do you feel the way I do, Mr. McCovey? No, Mr. Delgado, I don't. Silence invaded the phone call like ink splashed into water. Lee felt he could hear the old coach and teacher panting ever so faintly into the receiver, as if trying to sweat out all the hurtful things he wanted to say to his old student. He was eventually the one to break the silence. I see, he said simply. I suppose I won't stand in the way of the rest of your calls. I wish you the best of luck out there, son. Thank you, sir. Bye now. Goodbye. Lee marked the end of the phone call in their ongoing recording, then fanned himself with his notebook while tracing his eyes over the feeds from the CCTV cameras. There was no trace of him in his home, even though the calls were definitely coming from this area of the city. The chief clapped his notebook closed, cleared his throat, and spat into a nearby wastebasket. Lee sighed. This is excruciating. What is? The older man replied. Being in this damn van, you know we could suffocate in here. It's the job, kid. I know, but does it ever get any easier? Not much does. Will it ever get any more exciting? The chief glanced sidelong at him in a way that made him clear the answer was the same. The monitors flashed velvety light off their faces as a golden apple sunset filtered in from the van's windshield. Lee swallowed. The computer's fans droned like airplane engines, calling to Lee's mind a sweaty summer job in a warehouse he'd had before entering the academy. It feels like an oven in here, he thought. But instead of saying that to the chief, he found himself saying, what's this McCovey character talking about with that reality and dreams crap? I told you, don't think too hard about what he's saying, just record it. Someone will think about it later. Lee wiped sweat from his forehead with a chilled hand towel he'd stashed in the mini fridge. It's frustrating how they don't tell us anything. It's need to know, and if we don't know, we don't need to. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's frustrating is all. Once again, Lee's pocket vibrated. He did the same as before, took a look at the collar, and ultimately replanted the phone in his slacks. Unknown again? The chief asked. No, that was blocked number. Damn robocalls, man. It's a sauna, he thought. They listened to the humming of the phone continue until it was replaced with the throb of evening rush hour traffic over the fans. Lee crossed his arms and rested his chin on them. He noticed the chief was glaring at him. What? Lee asked blandly. What do you care? Come again? The chief clapped his notebook shut and turned to Lee. I said, what do you care about this job anyway? About the superiors telling us anything? You care about this? Lee shot back. The chief leaned forward. This job isn't about finding something. You can't do it if you want things to happen, if you're expecting them to happen. You wait and they happen. That's what it's about. So we do nothing of value, in other words. No, the chief said, as if talking to a frustrated shopper. What do we do then? We come to work, we do our job, and we receive a paycheck. Welcome to the fucking world. And with that, the chief kicked his chair back to his position at the console, reopened his notebook, and stared into it. No one said anything for a whole 2 minutes. Lee drained another bottle of water from the mini fridge and crushed the plastic into a disc. He unbuttoned the top 2 buttons on his shirt and stared up at the perspiration that had accumulated on the van's ceiling, wondering when it'd be enough to form into droplets that blinked on them like ladybugs alighting. To his relief, the small red light blinked on. Lee bolted upright. The phone line. He's making another call. Quiet, the chief told him. Recordings engaged. Time 19 hours, 47 minutes. They listened as the dial tone sounded, followed by the melodic tones of numbers being entered. Area codes Chesterfield. Here we go again. Hello? Hi, Julia. Gabe, is that you? Yeah, it's me. Hi, she said uneasily. What's up? I apologize for calling you out of the blue. I know we haven't spoken since we broke up a few years ago. That's all right. What's going on? You need something? No, nothing like that. More like need to get something off my chest. Oh, she said flatly, as if their past had tumbled in and fell on top of the word. Gabe continued. Remember those dreams we used to talk about? That we wanted to be different than normal people? That we wouldn't be normal people? That we travel the world and squeeze from it all the magical, adventurous, romantic experiences we could? That we wouldn't give in and accept mediocrity? A normal life with a normal job and 2 kids and a dog and white picket fence and that whole thing? I remember, yes. Well, I failed. I couldn't do it. Silence. Then the faint reply from the woman. What? I didn't become the things I said I would become, the things that I wanted to be. And more importantly, I'm giving up on becoming them. Giving up? I know what you're thinking. We believed I was someone special, but I'm not. It's that simple. If you ever had any spare thoughts of me these days, wondering what may have happened to me or if I really did go on to do anything great, you can just stop them. I didn't and I won't. Gabe, are you okay? Yes. You're not thinking of doing something like hurting yourself, are you? Oh, Gabe said and laughed. Goodness, no. I'm not going to end my life prematurely or something. I just want to end any preconceived notions or conceptions of who I was before and who I wanted to be. When we broke up, I know I told you I would become a better man, but I haven't and I won't. I'm going to stop being myself and just be something different, something ignorable. Stop being yourself. Something ignorable. I don't understand. Looking for my true self was too hard and I simply can't do it anymore. So I'm just going to go do what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to want regular things that boring people want, like a job I don't hate too much, or a life where I get to take a vacation for a week out of the year, even if it's just to catch my breath. That's a bad life? It's a normal life. You know, like get married, have children, not cause too much controversy, not get noticed, only be special to a few people in my life who are obligated by institutional societal ties like family or marriage to care about me and what I do. I'm just going to look forward to other people making things that can make me happy. And I'll select those things and put them in my schedule like they were mine all along. That's what I'm going to do from now on. Is calling me and telling me this entirely necessary? I apologize if it feels like a waste of time for you. I just couldn't stand the thought of someone out there having expectations of me I knew I wouldn't fulfill. But that's normal. Precisely, Gabe said. I'm going to be normal now. No, Julia said. I mean, there isn't anyone who doesn't fall short of at least some of their goals and responsibilities. Perhaps. They shared a silence in which Lee could feel a bead of sweat slipping down the crevice of his spine. So, Julia said, followed by a noise like she was switching the phone to her other ear. Are you saying I need to tell you if I'm becoming normal? No, said Gabe. That's totally up to you. This was for me. He's nuts, Lee thought to himself. Gabe's voice came over the line. I'll need to wrap this up and finish my calls. Who else have you called? Julia asked. Just about everybody, Gabe replied. Everyone I knew, or who knew me. Old classmates, old friends, long out of touch, old teachers, coaches, my parents, my siblings. Are you going to call Lisa? Already did, Gabe said. Julia was obviously surprised. I thought you would have called her after me. Nope. I started last week. You're second to last. I'm your second to last? A pause. So he's next then. Who? You know who. Yeah. You really going to? Julia asked. I am. It's time. Goodbye, Julia. Bye, Gabe. That was all for Gabe's call with Julia. Once the line disconnected, the chief hit the spacebar on the keyboard jetting out from the machines, adding a bookmark to the rolling recording. Almost immediately, they could hear a new number being entered on their headphones. Shit, he's dialing a new number, Lee said. Get set up. They readied themselves. Recording engaged. Time 20 hours, 1 minute. They listened to the symphonic beeping, then the outgoing call sound. Lee's cell phone was vibrating again. God, the timing on these guys. He ignored it. Area code's not Chesterfield this time, it's New York. The synthetic ring continued. Sounds like no one's picking up. After about 40 seconds of this, a strange thing happened. Right as the synthetic rings of Gabe's outgoing call stopped, the vibrations in Lee's pocket stopped. And then Lee heard a familiar voice in his headphones. Hi, you've reached Lee Smith. I can't come to the phone right now, but if you... This was his answering machine message. His personal line. Somehow, Gabe was calling him. He jerked his phone out of his pocket. The display read Gabriel McCovey. What? But Lee knew he'd never saved a contact for this guy. Why did it look like a saved contact, but that name was calling him? When Lee dared raise his eyes from the phone to his superior, he found the chief staring straight at him with no emotion at all. Slowly, he mouthed the words, "Pick it up." Lee removed his headphones, accepted the call, pressed the phone to his ear, and swallowed. Hello? Oh, I thought I'd missed you, Lee. I was getting your voicemail message. Ah, Lee said, sorry about that. No problem, you're here now. May I ask, Lee said, who is calling? Yes, this is Gabriel McCovey. Gabriel McCovey. Yes, we used to know each other. You don't remember? Lee felt the sting of sweat seeping into his eyes. He saw the chief writing furiously in his notebook, and he gulped. What's he writing all of a sudden? Lee said, faltering, I don't know anyone named Gabriel McCovey. You and me, we were best friends when we were really young. I mean, way back. We were inseparable. We did everything together. You seriously don't remember? It was as if the suffocating air of the van had pushed Lee through some membrane into a dream space. What was going on? I think you've got the wrong number. Lee Smith from Chesterfield, right? You left before middle school. I'm not from Chesterfield. I'm from, He grimaced as if he was trying to read an eye chart with letters impossibly small. His mind was drawing a blank. Where was he from? Where did he spend his childhood? All of a sudden, he couldn't remember. How did you get this number? Lee asked. I could go into it, but I'm in a bit of a hurry. I wanted to watch the sunset a little, and it's almost over. Lee turned and glanced out the van's windshield. Indeed, the sun was almost completely gone under the horizon, tucked away as if under a blanket of black wool. So it is, he said. Sorry, I can't help you. He heard a hoarse exhalation of air from the other side of the call. I figured you probably wouldn't remember me. Believe it or not, that was one of the things I was most scared about. It was sort of the last thing I thought I could have been wrong about. The last thing that would have surprised me, but yeah, that makes sense. Lee didn't say anything to this. He was conscious of the phone slipping in his sweaty hand. I'm actually calling to apologize to you, Gabe continued. It'd be a big help if you'd just listen. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. Lee's throat felt tight. He heard his own voice speak into the receiver. Why are you doing all this? He saw the chief's eyebrows crinkle up his forehead in surprise. What? Gabe said, startled. I asked why you're doing this. Why are you apologizing to me? To everyone? Why are you doing this? There was a pause. In the shuddering light, it was harder and harder to see the details of the chief's face. After a few moments, Gabe replied, I'll tell you why if you tell me why you're recording and watching me. Lee's chest was struck with pain like a claw was running over it. The chief rubbed his palms into his eyes. What? I'm not. Lee, come on. It's my job. I have to do it. But why? I don't know, Lee said. They don't tell us that. We're just supposed to watch and record you. Then stop doing it. But I can't, Lee said. This is my job. My whole stupid job is to sit in a van and record what people are doing and saying. So no, I can't just not listen to you. I just never get to know why you're doing what you're doing, and I'm finding it harder and harder to keep it out of my mind. It's like hearing only certain parts of a bunch of stories. After a while, all I've got is a bunch of beginnings, middles, and ends that don't go together. So is that why you're apologizing to everyone? Lee's sweat-soaked shirt stuck to him like a half-shed snakeskin. No, came the reply. That's not why. I knew you were watching. I knew you were listening. I've known since I left Chesterfield someone was always watching me. Not that you remember. So tell me why you're doing this, Gabe. No, said Gabe more forcefully. You don't get to know that. Ultimately, that's what I'm sorry for. I'm sorry your life will be spent looking in at others through blinds in their windows. I'm sorry these people you'll never know will dictate your life for you. I'm sorry you're stuck in that van listening to melodies that never resolve before they're irretrievably lost. Well, guess what? Lee said. I don't care that you're sorry. Why should I? I don't even know you. I don't remember you. You're just some crazy person somebody paid us to listen to. I'm crazy? Why? Because I believe there were men in a van listening to my phone calls? Lee wanted to say something to this, but instead found his throat feeling like he'd swallowed a grapefruit. The fact you exist proves you'll always exist. I just thought maybe you'd remember me, and maybe then you could convince yourself to stop watching me and let me go on living. Maybe then you'll learn more about the John Devines and the Mr. Delgados. Said Lee, exasperated. I don't remember you. Lee swallowed. I'm sorry, Gabriel. No need to apologize. You're the one who's got to live your life, too. Now, if you'll excuse me, you're going? Lee asked, startled. The sunset. If you ever want to talk again, try to remember our days back in Chesterfield. Bye, Lee. Bye. Lee lowered the phone from his ear. The chief didn't say anything. He only slowly pressed the button to demarcate the ending of a timestamp for the call. Gabe turned in his seat and looked out the windshield. The sky was purple and dark. With the sun gone, the temperature in the van had dropped. The sweat covering him felt like a plastic film, squeezing all the oxygen out of his blood until his heart couldn't pump anymore. He returned his gaze to the chief. It's kind of chilly in here, isn't it? He said. You get used to it, the chief replied. Thank you very much. That is the end.
All right, awesome. So yeah, I don't think anyone's listening to my phone calls. Now I wonder though, because I mean, there is always the FBI van, you know, network name.
It really were.
Be very disappointed. Okay, well, I will let you go. And let's see. Next up, we have Roberta. So, hello, Roberta.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. So what do you have for us tonight?
Well, this is a tiny story of mine, and it's about an adolescent girl who lives in a small town. And there's nothing like a small town to make you think that none of your thoughts are secret. So
Nice. Okay.
this story is called Lemon Drop.
Sounds good.
The summer sky was filled with smoky clouds and hung a doomed aspect over the valley. The cars went by in a desultory way, as though they had lost something they weren't sure they had the desire or energy to look for, but had to put up a show nonetheless. I sat on the side of the road and considered the possibility of crossing it, realizing that while I wasn't a chicken, that damn road might just need crossing anyway. Oh, but why? The murky heat and the sweat that accompanied it had stolen my minimal motivation away. Not that I had been all that eager to take care of the job, regardless of the heat. I don't know anybody who enjoys apologizing, but some folks seem to get it better than others. And it's not one of those practice makes perfect things. It seems that the less one needs to apologize, the better they are at it. Like, because they don't do it too often, their stockpile is bigger. Or maybe they're just better people than I am. So taking responsibility for stuff they shouldn't have done comes easier. Or maybe they don't get caught as much. So in reality, when they appear to be saying they're sorry, underneath, they're laughing about all the shit they've gotten away with. Or maybe this entire rambling internal dialogue was a ruse, procrastination of the worst sort, so that I could salve my conscience with the idea that I was trying to resolve a moral dilemma. Bull. I didn't want to abase myself before Mr. Cheatham, commonly known as Cheater, to confess that I had broken into his garage with the not terribly awful intention of sitting in the driver's seat of his 1928 canary yellow roadster. At the time, it had not occurred to me that I would have no way to re-secure the opened window after I left. It also did not occur to me that others, more needy than I, or perhaps with fewer compunctions, might see the loosed boards as a golden opportunity to take above-mentioned roadster on a joyride and run it into the side of a mountain, thereby destroying 6 years of restoration work and a man's pride and joy. No, it appeared that my mother was right. I was a thoughtless, selfish girl who did whatever she wanted without consideration for other people's feelings or property. I stood and shook my head. There was nothing for it. I either went to Cheater's house and pleaded on bended knee for forgiveness, I stuck my thumb out for a ride, hoping nobody I knew would pick me up to take me permanently away from all of this. B wasn't really an option. If there was a way for me to even cross this street in the dinky town without the entire populace knowing I had no clue as how to execute the maneuver, I shook my head again and wonder at the way Randy and Jake have escaped all the powerful watch of the Beberg Big Sisters as they snuck into Cheater's garage to make off with the car formerly known as Lemon Drop. Of course, they were boys and theoretically had more need, therefore more practice at evasion. At least that was the hierarchical understanding of how things work in Beberg. But I wasn't buying it. From where I sat, or rather currently stood, it seemed to me that the girls in Beberg had always been into more shit than the guys. The guys' shit just seemed to get messier dirt-wise than the girls' shit was messier, mean, sneaky-wise. And anyone who thought otherwise had never seen a pack of cheerleaders work a lunchroom. The Beberg cheerleaders could always press their way into the good graces of most adults. I lacked that particular talent. Scanned the street one more time, hoping for that anonymous car heading anywhere away. Seeing no moving vehicles of any sort and running out of stalling ideas, I crossed the road with a sigh and headed towards Cheater's place. Window unit air conditioner spat at me as I passed through the 2 blocks of downtown, demonstrating that even the machines of the Berg were aware of my perfidy. I wouldn't have been surprised if Trouser, Mrs. Hamline's sweet old collie, had come out to pee on my leg. So low was I on the worth-ranking list of Beberg at this moment. Even though I was moving so slowly that Yertle the turtle could have passed me at a crawl, Trouser did not find me, nor was I able to delay my appointment with Destiny. It had taken me more than an hour to make the 10-minute walk to Cheater's house from mine. The man himself was in his front yard, on his knees. He looked like he was praying, maybe for the soul of Lemon Drop, until I realized he was working in his rose bed. Weeding had been my mother's favorite punishment for my sins for many years, and it was totally beyond me why anyone would do it willingly. But I watched him loosen soil and pull weeds for a bit, and then I cleared my throat. He must have been wrapped in his work, however, for he didn't turn to see me. I waited another minute, then walked beside him, my shadow falling over him like a cloud of doom. The leap he gave might have been satisfying had I wished to scare him out of his wits, but that was not my intent. We both jumped several feet, then settled down in identical hands across the hearts poses. Great. Now I had to apologize for scaring him to death, as well as killing his car. The list of to-dos just grows and grows. We stared at each other for a minute, a year, waiting for God knows what. I watched his lips pinch and turn gray. Oh, great pumpkin, he's going to kill me. The voice that emerged stunned me. Little blue pills. Coffee table. A hot brush of devil's wind drove me into the dark Victorian home that smelled of lavender and piss. Cats roiled around my legs as I searched for a living room. There, off to the left, a parlor. The sunlight bounced off myriad dust motes, making the bright room's objects obscure. I shaded my eyes to block their intricate dances, breathing a sigh of relief as I spied an old, overstuffed sofa fronted by a short table. The tabletop contained the mess of an old person's life, tissues, crackers, and pill bottles merged with books, magazines, and unopened mail. I threw every bottle in a grocery bag that sat on the table as I muttered some sort of prayer or imprecation. Then, with a last look around and a muttered shit, I tore back out the door. Cheater lay on his side. I could hear his harsh breathing over the roar of my own blood. I vaguely recognized the approach of neighbors. Gray, white-haired women in ill-fitting cotton dresses who shuffled when they walked as I dumped the bag's contents on the bright green lawn. My hands clawed through pill containers, throwing each one away until I came to a bottle containing little blues. My hands shook as I tried to open the bottle. Cheater's eyes implored me to hurry. It opened. Pale blue pills flew all across the lawn. A single pill remained. I somehow managed to grasp it and poke it in his mouth. Eternally long seconds ticked by until Cheater's breathing seemed easier and a slight smile ticked onto his face. The noises of the world rushed back to me. A siren, close. Brakes squealed, and a man plucked me out of the way as 3 others ran over with a gurney. In moments they were gone, leaving me standing there, surrounded by pill bottles, with the sun baking my head. A movement caught my eye, and I turned to face Mrs. Hendricks. She grumped. It's a good thing I was watching and called the hospital, child, or you would have killed him twice. Turning, she shuffled back to her house. Tears streaming down my face, I called after her. Thank you, Mrs. Hendricks. When her door closed behind her, I bent down to gather pill bottles. That's it.
All right. Awesome, Roberta. So, yeah, so little blue pills and all kinds of fun stuff. At least it didn't have little blue people, though. So that's...
Yeah, I didn't know how they would not know. Or something.
All right. Okay, so next up we have Jeff. So I will go ahead and let you chill, Roberta. And I'm going to bring Jeff up here. So, hello. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. You know, surviving in the heat.
It's a good night. These are really good stories. It's a good addition.
Awesome. Yes. All right. Well, so what do you have for us tonight, Jeff?
I have it short and creepy, and it's called Charlie Decides.
All right. Sounds awesome. Let you take it away.
Hi, everybody. So it's called Charlie Decides, and it's about 2 little girls who I think I've read stories about here previously, called L and M, Ella being short for Eloise, M being short for Emily. Anyway, this is called Charlie Decides. The pencil sat at the center of a piece of white paper divided into 4 alternating squares. 2 of the squares held the word yes, 2 of the squares held the word no. You just balanced the pencil on the other pencil crossways, said M. Elle set one pencil on top of the other as her sister had asked. When the pencil tilted and the eraser touched the paper, M snatched it up. No, it's got a balance, she said. Why? So Charlie can move it. He's like a spirit, a ghost. He can barely move anything, so you have to make it as easy for him as possible. Have you even seen a horror movie before? M carefully laid down the pencil on top of the other pencil, making small adjustments until the utensils were perfectly balanced. She gave the end of the pencil a tiny tap. It swung several inches so that the point hung over the quadrant of the paper that said yes. See, if Charlie did that, it means yes. She gave the pencil a tap in the other direction. The point of the pencil swung over to no. And when he does that, it means no. So we just ask him questions, yes or no questions. Elle adopted her most professorial tone. Yes, but the first question is always, Charlie, Charlie, can you play? And only after he says yes, can you start playing. And when you're done, you have to ask if he's done. You say, Charlie, Charlie, are we done? And he has to say yes. You can't leave the game until he says it's over. What if he doesn't say yes? He'll say yes. You just have to ask. And you can't just say, Charlie, Charlie, we're done. Charlie decides when we're done. Okay. Repeat it back to me. What do you have to do? Elle sighed. You have to ask, Charlie, Charlie, are we done? And you have to wait until he says yes. Any other questions? Elle had many, many more questions for her sister, but she didn't expect to get any more useful information. Plus, she was excited to ask Charlie about Josh, this boy at school she was hoping would ask her out. She told her sister no. Em straightened out both pencils so they formed an exact cross at the center of the paper, parallel to the lines drawn on the sheet. Em spoke in a cartoonishly funereal voice. Charlie, Charlie, can you play? Nothing. Elle asked, Charlie, Charlie, can you play? The pencil shuddered for a brief moment. The point of the pencil glided over to yes and stopped. The two girls looked at each other with wide eyes, unsure of how to proceed. Their dad had always forbidden them from playing with a Ouija board, Elle remembered. They were dangerous, he had said. This wasn't exactly a Ouija board, but it was close enough. Maybe Em had blown on the pencil to move it and thus scare her sister. Elle asked, Charlie, Charlie, are you here in the room? The pencil shuddered again, but did not otherwise move. Wait, asked Em, if the pencil doesn't move, but it's already over the yes, does that mean Charlie isn't answering? Or is he answering yes? I don't know. I think he means yes. Em's turn. Charlie, Charlie, will I get an A in algebra? No response. The pencil point continued to hover over the yes. Elle started laughing. Okay, now we know this game is stupid. Charlie thinks you're going to get an A in algebra. Elle thought she might have hurt her sister's feelings with the question, and so added, okay, I'm sorry. Let me ask a question. Charlie, Charlie, does Josh like me? Nothing. Charlie, Charlie, will Josh ask me to the prom? Nothing. Em said, I don't think Charlie cares about Josh and the prom. Let's give him something with a little more meat on its bones. Elle felt a sudden fear rush through her blood. Em said, is our mom there? Is she there with you? No, that's not right. Don't ask him that, cried Elle. Em said, why? You know you were thinking it too. It's why we play these games. It's not why I play. Em scoffed. We're both thinking it. We both want to do it. Elle knew her sister was right. Em said, come on, take my hands. Let's ask Charlie together. Elle reluctantly reached across the table and took both her sister's hands. Elle said the words in a more solemn manner than her previous questioning. Em merely mouthed the words along with her. Charlie, Charlie, is our mom there? The pencil shuddered but did not move, continuing to hover over the word yes. I don't know if that means yes or not, said Elle. Em asked, Charlie, Charlie, is our mom there? Another shudder. Elle told her sister, ask him something only mom would know. Em took her sister's hands. Charlie, Charlie, was I born before my sister? Was I born first? Another shudder, and this time it was followed by motion as the pencil slowly moved towards no and settled. Elle demanded, promise me you didn't just do that. Promise me you didn't just blow on the pencil. Her sister said, I promise, Elle, that's not me. I didn't move the pencil. But it's wrong, Elle whispered. I was born first. I know. What does that mean? Elle leaned into her sister and spoke as quietly as she could. I think it means we're not talking to Mom. What? Em hissed. That's not Mom. Then who is it? Shh, said Em. Charlie will hear you. The pencil swung to yes in a movement so fast Elle's eyes barely registered it. Oh no, he heard you, said Em. I'm scared, said Elle. Charlie, Charlie, should we be scared? Another shudder of the pencil, but it didn't move. Elle asked, Charlie, Charlie, are you going to hurt us? The pencil did its usual shudder and slowly turned clockwise, a full 360 degrees until it was back where it started, the point hovering over yes. Elle felt tears well, threatening to fall. Her throat closed up. She began to breathe in short, fast gulps of air. She looked to Em, who looked back to her wide-eyed and mute. And then suddenly the cat jumped on top of the table and shook it just enough so that the top pencil fell off the bottom pencil, landing harmlessly on the paper below. The tension evaporated. Both girls laughed loudly. Buttercup, I love you, Elle told her cat and gathered the feline in her arms. Girls, is everything all right? Called their dad from another room. Elle said, everything's fine, Dad, and it felt close to the truth. Everything's fine. Elle said, you're right, Dad. You're right, Elle. Dad was right. This game is scary and dangerous. I'm sorry. We'll never play the stupid game again. As if on cue, Dad called them to dinner. Em leapt from her chair and ran to the dinner table. Elle said, Charlie, Charlie, we're done now, okay? And followed her sister out of the room. Buttercup followed them. When the room was empty and without any fuss whatsoever, the pencil that had been top of the other pencil began rolling across the table and fell to the floor. The pointed lead of the pencil broke upon impact. Elle and Em and Dad ate supper, not in silence, but with more restraint in their conversation than usual. Dad tried to bring up subjects to prompt a response, but the girls mostly reacted with short supplies that required no follow-up. When they finished their meal, Em cleared the table, then went to her room. Elle rinsed the dishes and set them in the dishwasher while Dad settled behind his laptop. No one noticed the pencil roll down the hallway following Em or heard the telltale rattle of wood on wood. No one saw it disappear under Em's door. Elle dropped a plate when she heard the scream from her sister's room. The sound of the china shadowing echoed in her ears, replaying itself over and over and over as she rushed to Em's room. Buttercup bolted from harm's way at the sound of the plate breaking. At least Buttercup was okay, thought Elle. She heard Dad's running footsteps in the hallway and heard them stop behind her, trying to understand. Elle hurled the door open and stood in Em's doorway. She saw her sister's back as Em kneeled in front of the open hamster cage. She held a lump of matted fur in one of her hands, a slender pencil in the other. Blood dripped from the broken point of the pencil at a steady pace, forever staining the worn cop carpet of the only home they had ever known. Em turned to them and revealed a lopsided, toothy grin. I didn't say we were done playing, she said. And that's it. I'm done.
Oops.
Hmm?
All right. Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that was going to end badly.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, I will let you go hang out for a bit, Jeff. And next up, we have Seth. So let's see. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing great. What a
Awesome.
wonderful variety of stories here.
Hey,
This is my
yeah.
first time here, as you know, so I'm very, very delighted. Those were wonderful stories.
Awesome. So what have you got for us tonight?
Okay. Originally, I was planning to read a short story, but over the weekend, my novel was awarded an award of excellence for literary fiction through the Colorado Authors League. So I thought I would read a section from that novel. It's titled "The Perfect Stranger." It's an absurdist satire. It takes place way in the future. My protagonist is only known by the initial S, and he comes into this town looking for someone. And during his search, he comes to learn all about the town. And in this particular scene, he learns about the institution of law. It opens with a librarian by the name of Neiman, and Neiman gives these lectures. He gives these lectures to his book club, not knowing that the members of his book club are actually radical revolutionaries using the language that he imparts to overthrow the town. And so this scene opens with a lecture that S himself was not able to attend.
Okay. Sounds good.
But had S entered our Macropolis a month or two sooner, had he stumbled up the library steps and lumbered down into the basement for one particular lecture, he would have heard Neiman Gorge pontificate on that medium rare phenomenon known as the human institution. Institutions, Neiman informed the timid-eyed Heidi, the knuckle-cracking Hector, the skeptical Ruth, the snoring Ralph, The fidgeting Sedgwick searching that particular day for his belly button? Institutions are a curious animal. Human institutions inevitably subvert themselves. Becoming more concerned with preserving the institution, they eventually embrace principles antithetical to the very ideals they profess to champion. Take the institution of the now defunct Christianity he used as an example. That antiquated religion was originally intended to unite all of mankind under one divine deity, to lead all humankind onto the blessed path of universal brotherhood. Yet, no sooner did Christianity institutionalize than they began dividing humanity into Hebrews and Greeks, into Christians and pagans. Soon they were dividing people with swords and axes, and later with machine guns, and finally into teeny-weeny pieces with their bombs. Not content to merely divide Christians from non-Christians, they divided this type of Christian from that type of Christian. They even divided within their own families, split over one interpretation of a particular verse in their holy scripture against another. Neiman went on, espousing how this phenomenon was not the sole domain of Christianity, but repeated itself ad infinitum within all the once great religions during that ill-fated middle period of human history. Now, take the institution of marriage, he continued, stepping from behind the lectern. An institution forged originally to unite a man and a woman in what was called a holy bond of matrimony. That holy bond has now evolved into prenuptial, postnuptial, and antinuptial contractual arrangements, where emotions must be removed from the equation. Since emotions get sticky and are prone to cloud, good, sound, passionless judgment. Those benefiting most from the current institution of marriage are marriage counselors who enjoy unprecedented job security, as do the divorce lawyers who rely on these marriage counselors for lucrative referrals. S would have heard the librarian cite further examples. Hospitals, which originally designed to heal patients, now focused on what was called the bottom line. The institution of medical care had subsequently divided into factions called doctors, nurses, and administrators, who quarreled and quibbled incessantly, far more concerned with keeping their doors open and their salaries healthy than with the sick who came through said doors. Neiman cited several examples of staff quarrels so bitter that when an ailing patient raised his throbbing head to request a painkiller, one faction, then the other, ordered the patient to shut his trap, stating they would get to him when they felt good and ready. How common, Neiman asserted, for the supposed healer to yank the cord of a patient's lifeline, muttering, "It served the sick bastard right." This before returning to a bitter negotiation, cordially passing the donuts in the process. By the time Edmund, in his unusual late fashion, arrived, Neiman had moved on to the institution of education, which originally established to teach and promote knowledge, was now embroiled in teacher administration negotiations and budget allocations and how to increase test scores while administrating as little monetary sacrifice as possible. Had S sat in on that lecture, he would have also learned a bit or two about the human institution called law. According to legal historians, with which Neiman's research concurred, the legal system was originally established to ferret out truth, then mete out justice. But the evolution of said institution quickly led magistrates and judges, lawyers and attorneys, bailiffs, litigators, prosecutors for the defense, prostitutors for the offense, law clerks, mediators, legal counselors, and their illegal counterparts to become more concerned with salaries, procedural loopholes, public opinion, political expediency, and bribes not easily traceable. Thus, words like truth and justice had often to be looked up in antiquated lexicons, while attorneys and prosecutors were more inclined to dress in their finest and spout words in Greek's and or pig's Latin, such that jurors and opposing counsels would assume said lawyers knew far more than they actually did. In short, Neiman summarized, the institution of law is now all about winning. What is more, the preponderance of litigation by trial eventually led to the realization that said jurors were won over not by being bored out of their skulls, but rather by being entertained, amused, seduced, as it were, into voting for this version of the truth as opposed to that version of the truth. And by historical coincidence, the librarian pointed out, the institution of art, originally intended to inspire and enlighten, had also evolved into realizing its mission was mainly to draw crowds, i.e., to entertain, since through entertaining, the artist might earn enough income to support his/her agent and stifle the incessant whining of his/her spouse. Thus, the two institutions, the institution of law and the institution of art, merged. Jurors nowadays clamor to sit on the juicier murder trials, the more wanton burglaries, grand larcenies, and extortion cases. Bitter divorces were also in high demand. The more irreconcilable the differences, the more expensive the free popcorn. Everything from parking tickets to unpaid library fines drew crowds of prospective jurors. And why not, when one enjoyed a front row seat to view some of the most highly esteemed actors, musicians, jugglers, con artists, and clowns in the business? And so, when S entered courtside for the first of his preliminary hearings, the three rings comprising the courtroom were humming with court clerks and legal carpenters positioning the poles, erecting tents, stringing the tight ropes, and securing the nets. Hawkers were selling gourmet popcorn and offering free balloons for $1. Legal advisors with colorful briefs shouted orders and jotted down last-minute motions to the show's itinerary, all the while expertly stepping out of the way of the prosecutors sweeping the elephant dung left from the previous trial. Messrs. Booth, Daly, and Ivins, the same ski slope-nosed lawyers who had accosted S in the gymnasium locker room, were gathered in one ring, stretching, practicing their scales, and reviewing the lyrics to their opening number. Their clients, Sir Harry and C.D. Smollett, handed them towels, passed around bottles of alligator aid, and distributed a white powdery substance which, when snorted, was said to improve performance, or at least one's perception of one's performance. Filkin Grimspoon consulted S in the second ring. As S's self-appointed attorney, Grimspoon donned a black leotard, a pink and white candy-striped tutu hugged his slender hips. His strategy, he informed S, was to begin with a brief ballet vignette, followed by a monologue from a well-known tragedy of a grizzled old man who kills his entire family, then frames it on their German shepherd. Don't worry, Grimspoon assured S. Jurors love dogs. Besides, I'm the master of the sad-eyed puppy look. When the lawyer demonstrated, S had to sniffle a sniffle. Centered in the third ring was a large blackjack table, the presiding judge serving as dealer as members of the potential jury called out either hit me or stay. Thus, the 7 3/4 members of the jury were selected along with 3 3/4 alternates, responsible mainly for going out for coffee and sandwiches, that and making faces to distract opposing counsel. This is only the preliminary hearing, Grimspoon informed S. Which side wins the most applause not only gets the plusher seats, but also decides if closing arguments are to be done in a dramatic monologue, an abstract modern dance piece, or an operatic aria. If we win and I select modern dance, we've won. None of the opposing counsel know beans about modern dance. Unless, of course, he added after doing a quick plie, they hire additional counsel. But not to worry, we can appeal and hire more dancers ourselves. Plus, I know a choreographer who has done wonders with hung juries. S glanced around the courtroom. The man he had come to know as Sir Harry leered at him, brandishing his cane and sticking out his tongue. Mr. Smollett, who had renounced their secret partnership, did everything in his nervous power not to glance in S's direction. As the final round of blackjack ended, the presiding judge rapped his gavel and the jury rearranged their chairs. The lights dimmed save for two roving spotlights shining from the ceiling. The yellow beams searched and steadied on the rings for the defense and the prosecution. The judge instructed the defendant and the suing parties to find their seats. Once S and his opponents were seated, an orchestra rose from a hidden stage illuminated by floor lights. The judge then ordered the bailiff to proceed. The bailiff, wigged and coat-tailed, wrapped his baton on the legal stand, raised both hands with an affected flourish, and waved his arms, prompting the orchestra to begin. The orchestra brought tears and warm smiles to the jury's eyes. Following the opening came the three-part harmony of Messrs. Booth, Daly, and Ivans, replete with twirling canes, kicking heels, and a climax in which their identical straw hats rolled up their arms, bounced off their biceps, and landed simultaneously atop their swollen heads. The maneuver drew rapt applause as well as beads of sweat on S's forehead. No sooner did the applause die down than the lights dimmed and the orchestra began again. Grimspoon stood motionless, head bowed, hands at his sides. Just as unexpectedly, he suddenly pirouetted into action, flying hither and thither about the full perimeter of the ring. One moment, his body tense and despairing, the next it was filled with flight and exhilaration. The entire courtroom sat hushed, completely entranced, as S felt his quivering muscles relax.
All right. Thank you, Seth. That was
Thank you.
completely off the chain. So awesome.
Absurdist satire. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning, but that's what it is.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So next up, we have Steve. So let's see. And Steve is currently muted.
Let's try unmuting.
Okay, there you go.
There we go.
So
How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
Awesome.
I have a very brief one. I think I'm closing us out for tonight, other than your closing statements.
Yes.
So I've got something I hope is appropriate for that. It's quick and we'll get us on the way.
Okay, sounds good. I will leave.
Okay. Normally, this type of a story, I would want to make sure that all of you already had your jammies on and had brushed your teeth and were ready to have a story before falling asleep. But since it's the summer and not a school night, we'll let it go this time. So I do have an assistant with me to help along here. So, are we ready?
I am ready.
We're ready. Okay.
All right.
I stood against the wall, as tall as I could stand. My dad stood by with a pencil in his hand. The bones in my back ached as I stretched them as far apart as they would go. Taller, taller. He closed one eye and drew the line just so. What a tall girl you're getting to be. He stepped back a pace and smiled down at me. Tall enough? I asked. Tall enough for the roller coaster? Tall enough for the spider? Tall enough for the upside down through the chute brain toaster? He smiled a sad smile and shook his head no. I sighed and frowned. I so wanted to go. Big rides next season. and then he hugged me for no reason. So we went on the Ferris wheel and on the small boats, on the steam train and to pet the soft furry goats. But I could feel the ground shake from the roller coaster and hear the kids scream on the upside down through the chute brain toaster. Autumn leaves fell on the lawn. Snow came when summer was gone. I ate and I grew, I think a size or two. When summer came back and I stood by the wall, I knew I would make it, once and for all. The wall with the lines that showed all my growing held one final line to show I'd be going. The leaves were new on the trees, warm air again, and flowers full of bees. The big rides were waiting, their lights filled the night. I tried to walk with my dad, but my feet were too light. We rode the roller coaster and the spider and the upside down through the chute brain toaster. I laughed and I screamed into the late at night. My hair went up and I went down and around out of sight. I left my stomach up there somewhere above the rails, floating with the stars. It caught up with me at the end with a scream of wheels and a last jerk of the cars. I laughed and wobbled down the stairs under the trees and said, "I'd like to ride the small boats next, if you please." It was then that I saw it, posted low on the wall. I could not ride the boats anymore. I was too tall. A tear formed in the corner of my eye. I sat on a bench with my dad and let out a big sigh. You're just the right size God wants you to be, and just the right size for your mother and me. Every year you will grow, even when you're 40 or so. That will be the right size too. If anyone says otherwise, they haven't a clue. Life is one big roller coaster, just like the upside down through the chute brain toaster. He put his hand over my heart, and I took it in mine. The ground thundered. Who cared about that old sign? We rode the big rides, my dad and me, and when we left, it was 2:45. The stars were out, and the moon rode the dark sea, so I slept and I dreamed of the future in me. That's the end.
Oh, that was adorable. So let's see. We've got more, bring back our peoples here so that, oops, I just removed you, Steve. Why did I do that?
There we are.
Okay. All right, cool. Now I think I have everybody.
Everybody.
All right. So let's see. Just trying to think well, I guess what's on everybody's mind after tonight's reading.
I wanted to know what Seth said, that there are so many great different kinds of stories, but all wonderful to listen to.
Yes, and all of them were very, very well crafted. Very, very well crafted. I was blown away. I was sitting down listening with my eyes closed and just mesmerized with everyone.
I love that comment we got from somebody on Facebook to say they were driving through the night listening to it. That was very cool.
Yeah, I have to apologize again because I still don't know how to get onto the regular comments. So, I'm just old and can't figure it out. But
that's.
But I just wanted to say thank you.
Yes,
all.
Sue was the one that was driving through Kentucky. I just went over to the Facebook page and looked. So.
That's cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Seth, what was your? All
right. So, let's see. I guess I don't know. I mean, I know?
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, Amy, you've locked up.
The internet is failing at precisely the time it need not.
What were
Yeah,
you going to
I
ask
am.
me, R.A.?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
what the award was and what the name of your novel is?
Colorado Authors League 2021 Award of Excellence in Literary Fiction. And the title of the novel is The Perfect Stranger. My website is wagingart.com. If you can remember waging art as opposed to wagingwar.com, you can find out about it and my poetry book and other
Cool.
things that I do.
And I am a real fan of tutus in courtrooms. So,
And I have satire and absurdism. So congratulations. I definitely want to read this.
Did your ladies get home safe to Tennessee? Amy, do you know?
I don't know. I think, I'll have to check in with her and see.
Okay. And Jeff, I've been in too many of those situations where the pencil was moving and it probably shouldn't have been. So
I love that story. Yeah.
My daughters were playing that, and I got freaked out and made them stop. So. I like to think that the moral of that story is trust Dad; he's always right.
I was hoping that the cat was the real hero in the end.
I actually had the cat run from the room before the ending to assuage my girlfriend's fears because she always gets scared that an animal's going to die at the end. I genuinely put that sentence in just for her.
So she knows you pretty well then.
She does. Well, I killed the hamster, so it's kind of like, I let her know that the cat was safe, but then I killed another animal. So I don't know that it helped that much.
You got to save the cat.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Didn't you hear one about the dog too? Whatever. Don't kill the dog. I want to thank you again. I got to take off, but it really was fun, and I thank you all. I really enjoyed your work.
Really enjoyed yours as well, Roberta.
Thank you. So
Yeah, it was great to see everybody.
Yeah,
so
see,
I guess
Amy, I was going to say this is a delightful find for me. I did not know that you had this, and I love it. Please, I want to see more. Invite me back. Nice venue, very nice venue. I've been struggling for venue for fiction. I do a lot of poetry, but I love fiction too. So thank you very much for inviting me. And thank you all for being a part of this. This was actually a treat and an honor. It's been an honor to read with all you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Seth.
Thank you. Yeah, same.
It's great having you.
So I appreciate it. And so I will just let everybody off here. Sorry that my internet is being a little flaky tonight. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. I think I have gremlins. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know before we wrap up tonight that the next show is on Wednesday, August 18th, and it's going to be at 7 p.m., which is the normal time. Same bat time, same bat channel. And the theme is Rebel Rebel. So, and I think I still have some space in there if you want to do that. Also in September, that show is going to be on the 15th at 7 p.m. and the theme is spooky campfire stories. So hopefully you'll see you then. And I hope you have a good night. Take care. Bye.